that credibility doesn't come from looking perfect. Credibility comes from being honest. Credibility comes from being vulnerable enough to share your weakness. People only trust people that are authentic, people that are real, people that when you make a mistake, it's not about the mistake you make. How do you respond from the mistake you've made? We are imperfect beings. We are not perfect. So we're always going to make mistakes. The goal in life is not to avoid making the mistakes. The goal. So in Acts 25, when we discover that a new governor had been appointed in this region, it says in verse 13, a few days later, King Agrippa and Bernice. In fact, when you read this story, it's actually more, I don't want to use the word sick, because apparently Bernice was actually his sister. And you know, back in the day in Rome, they used to have incestual relationships. There is historical evidence to probably back the fact that they were in an incestual relationship. But anyway, that's for another day. Well, it says King Agrippa and Bernice arrived at Caesarea to pay their respects to Festus. So obviously there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new governor. As king, he needs to go there. As king, there's a new governor in town. He has to go pay his respects because Rome has sent someone to represent the emperor there. So him going to meet Agrippa is the same as him going to pay homage to Rome. So also him going there is going to show that he's still in allegiance with Rome. He's going to welcome Festus. And I imagine when he met Festus, he's probably, trying to figure, like they'll talk, probably trying to figure out how has your first 2 weeks been so far. We know that Felix was recalled back to Rome because people had complained about him. So I imagine, King Agrippa possibly asking how bad was the mess that Felix left behind. And Festus sees the opportunity. He's like, you know what, since you're here, let me even share this with you, because there was a case that Felix was handling and he didn't do anything for 2 years. And when I took on this position, like that was one of the priorities that I had, especially because when I went to Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews brought charges against me, or brought charges against this prisoner, and asked that he be condemned. It says, and I told them that it is not Roman custom to hand over anyone before they have faced their accusers and have had an opportunity to defend themselves against the charges. We can't just hand people over to you. We know that Felix was a corrupt official. He was always asking for bribes. If you could pay the highest amount of money, he would do anything to bring a sense of integrity back to our system. And so I cannot just hand over someone to you unless they've been found to be guilty. But with the way they sounded, it seemed like it would be a straightforward case, that they had enough evidence to charge this guy. So it's like, you know what? I told them to come over to Caesarea and I'll be happy to provide or preside over the case immediately. Verse 17 says, when they came here with me, I did not delay the case. This to show you that this was priority for Festus. Like I value the relationship of the Jewish leaders so much that, you know what? I'm not even going to say, come back next month. I'm still trying to figure things out. I did not delay the case, but convened the court the next day and ordered the man to be brought in. It says, but when the accusers got up to speak, they did not charge him with any of the crimes that I had expected. So it means that Festus was expecting some, because if you are bringing a charge to kill someone, it's like telling someone, it's like going to court and saying, we are pleading for the death penalty of somebody. The judge is like, whoa, what did this person do? This person must have done some crazy stuff. So he's like, okay, let's get to it. Where's your lawyer? Please present the charges. And then the person starts to say, this person came into our church and was disrespecting our God. The judge is like, okay, maybe they just started with some, the preamble. Go on. And, he started getting other people to disrespect our God. Then he pushed a few chairs and a few things over. The judge is like, okay, get to part that will deserve the death penalty. And then they're like, we rest our case. The judge is like, so it's like, instead they had some points of dispute with him about their religion and about a dead man named Jesus who Paul claimed was alive. He says, I was at a loss how to investigate such matters. Like, how is this a joke? Are these guys joking? I literally came back. This is the first case that I'm presiding over. You guys are coming to me with this. So it's like, you know what? To even help their case, is like, I even asked if this Paul would be willing to go to Jerusalem and stand trial there on these charges. When Paul made his appeal to be held over for the emperor's decision, I ordered him held until I could send him to Caesar. This guy is probably like this was a joke to me, or it's not a serious case to me. How am I supposed to now send this case to my boss. Like, how? They sent me here to solve problems, not to transfer problems back to Rome. And so you can imagine, because Festus here is saying that he didn't even know who Jesus was. So the Jewish culture and religion was still new to him. He had been given the position to come and become governor, to govern these new people, but he did not know them. So it makes sense. He's like, King Agrippa, you are probably you know these people more than I do. I need help. You're more familiar with the religious laws. So I think you'll be a better judge in this matter. He's telling him. And so King Agrippa in verse 22 says to Festus, I would like to hear this man myself. Because remember, like King Agrippa, because he doesn't know these people, because he knows Festus doesn't know these people like that, he's probably thinking, has he given me the real information? Maybe there's something more that this poor guy did, because he knows that, the religious law still holds some weight. There are some offenses that require stoning sometimes, because that's how they were able to kill Stephen. That's how they were able to kill some of their James. So it's like, let me hear from him. Maybe you are missing some details. So it's like, I'd like to hear this from this man myself. And Festus is like, great, man. Tomorrow you will hear. So verse 26 says, the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp. In fact, this was a rabbit I didn't want to chase, because I'm like, why did they come with a great pomp just to hear this case? When it says a great pomp, it means that it came lavishly, like with like there was great entertainment, like how a king would. And again, maybe because he's a king and he's coming to this, but I'm like, you're coming to hear someone defend themselves. Why the lavish thingy? Anyway, that was a rabbit I didn't want to chase, man. But it says he entered the audience room with the high-ranking military. He came with a large entourage, and he came with high-ranking military officers. He also came with the prominent men of the city. So it then says, at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in. You're going to see, when I read this, I was like, why? Why did he bring Paul in now? And you're going to see why I say that in a second. Because remember, Festus is the new governor. He's probably in a state of mind where he's trying to enforce his authority. The person who was in his position before had puts a stain on the position. He was a corrupt person. I'm here to restore integrity to this office. And so I was imagining, why is it that the king is here with his entourage? High-ranking military officers are here. And it also says the prominent men of the city was here as well. So how is it that Festus now says to King Agrippa with Paul in the room? He says, King Agrippa and all who are present with us, you see this man? The whole Jewish community has petitioned me about him in Jerusalem and here in Caesarea. Think about that. They've petitioned him in two jurisdictions, shouting that he ought not to live any longer. He then says, this is where it sort of confused me, because he then says, I found, this is in front of Paul. Like, this is someone who is a prisoner, and the only reason why he's in prison is because you guys haven't released him. He's now saying in Paul's presence, I found he had done nothing deserving of death, but because he made his appeal to the emperor, I decided to send him to Rome. So in other words, he's saying in Paul's presence that he's innocent. I'm like, if this were somebody else, like, you'd have kept Paul outside, said, man, found that he wasn't deserving of death, but since he made it thingy, decided to send him to Rome. Now, Paul, come in so that you can give your thingy. But he said it in Paul's presence. He then reveals again, but I have nothing definite to write to his majesty about him. So he is revealing his limitation as the new governor, that I have nothing to write. You're going to see why I'm sharing this in a second, because I actually respect what he did here. It's something that we wouldn't see today, because as a governor, you're trying to enforce, you're trying to show that you know, but he was willing to delegate what he did not know to those who knew. There's an underrated skill that I'm going to reveal that we all should be practicing from today onward. It says, I have nothing definite to write to his majesty about him. Therefore, I brought him before all of you, and especially before you, King Agrippa. So this King Agrippa, this entourage that you brought, you're going to have to show that you are able to make decisions. Remember, and this is going to be critical, because this is why Paul is going to start speaking. I have brought him before all of you, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that as a result of this investigation, I may have something to write. Are you seeing that? The problem statement here is, I have nothing to write. I cannot send, it's like sending an email to your boss, blank, no subject line, nothing. Like, there's no point. This would have been a bad look. Like, I have a problem. This guy has said he wants to go to Caesar, but there's nothing to write. the fear of hiding your past so that people don't judge you and see you as weak. I love the fact that Paul could come out and share what he had been through, even though it was bad. He was responsible for killing people. He was responsible for forcing people to blaspheme. He was responsible for imprisoning people. The same people that he's now obsessed about. He was responsible for all that. The fear of looking disqualified. And what the Holy Spirit wants to teach us today is that credibility doesn't come from looking perfect. Credibility comes from being honest. Credibility comes from being vulnerable enough to share your weakness. People only trust people that are authentic, people that are real, people that when you make a mistake, it's not about the mistake you make. How do you respond from the mistake you've made? I did a video a few years ago. Do you realize most of the companies that we support and we're loyal to today, we're not loyal to them because they're perfect. They've made mistakes. But they came and they were accountable. They took responsibility for the mistakes that they made. And they said, you know what, this is what we're going to do to avoid that happening again. But a lot of people today want to put up this front that I never make mistakes. And this is why even in the church, because we don't have a lot of pastors who are vulnerable enough to share what they are going through, the moment you see them fall, it feels like, my goodness, how? Because we've placed a premium on their lives, and they've shown us that, oh, we don't make mistakes, we are perfect. That when they fall, the fall is loud and people are hurt. People fall away because their picture of perfection has now been shattered. We have people who do not want to share about what they did in the past, who they were. It's why for me, my marriage, I say vulnerability is my superpower. If I don't know something, I'll say I don't know, but I can find out. Let me find out. I'll get back to you. The worst thing is when somebody tells you I know it when they don't know it, but then you find out it was wrong. You can't trust that person because that person has told you, I'm 100% sure. And then you find out that it was wrong. Now it's like, nah, because when this person says I'm sure, I cannot trust what they say anymore. And this is very critical because we are imperfect beings. We are not perfect. So we're always going to make mistakes. The goal in life is not to avoid making the mistakes. The goal is how quickly can you pivot when you realize that you've made a mistake. That's the most underrated skill that I believe a lot of people lack today, but we need to begin embracing as Christians. I feel like a lot of us right now are just like, I don't want to make mistakes. That's not the goal. You're going to make mistakes. The better goal is to be adaptable enough that when you realize that you've made a mistake, how quickly can you pivot? How quickly can you correct it? When new information comes in, how quickly can you change direction? The goal is to learn from your mistakes, not to avoid making mistakes. How do you learn? And this is the thing, a lot of people are, because there's the fear of looking weak, even when they know they are wrong, they will stick to being wrong than being vulnerable enough to accept that they made a mistake. This happens a lot in marriages where someone will say, you know you are wrong, but because I'm the man of the house, if I say I'm wrong, then it's going to make me look weak. No, you already look weak. Arguing something that everybody knows you are wrong. You already look weak that way because it's evidence that you're not able to take accountability. You will build trust with your spouse. You will build trust with your team when you are able to show that you are capable of taking accountability and you are capable of admitting that you are wrong. A lot of people, and it's not enough to just say I'm wrong, I was wrong. No, this is why I was wrong, and this is what I've discovered to ensure that this doesn't happen again. It shows that you are being proactive. It shows that you are responsible. Responsible is two words. It's your response ability. It's your ability to respond. This is about noon. King Agrippa, as I was on the road, I saw a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, blazing around me and his companions. Saul, okay, verse 15 says, then I asked, who are you, Lord? And this is why I love Paul's story, because Paul was confidently ignorant, doing the wrong thing. But guess what happened? When he was exposed to the truth, he responded. When he was exposed to the truth, he changed, he pivoted. I am Jesus whom you are persecuting, the Lord replied. Now get up and stand on your feet. I have appeared to you to appoint you as a servant and as a witness of what you have seen and will see of me. I will rescue you from your own people and from the Gentiles. I am sending you to them to open their eyes and turn them from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God, so that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. It says, so then, King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the vision from heaven. a vision. That's new information. He received new information. And based on the new information he received, it redirected his path. He was passionate. God just needed to redirect his passion into the right thing. There are a lot of people today who are passionately wrong. You can be passionately wrong about something. The fact that you are passionate about it doesn't make it right. There are people who argue passionately about things and they're like, because I'm so passionate about it, it must be true. No, you can be passionately wrong. God still needs that passion. It just needs to be directed in the right place. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to know how to hear from God using the Bible, I'd love to invite you to a live Bible study session that is happening every single day, Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. EST, where I show you how to not just read the Bible for information, but how to meditate on it for revelation, because revelation is the key to your transformation. Take care. Bye-bye.